We're bad friends.
You know what I don't like watching on stuff on the plane, because you can feel people looking at your screen.
Yes.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either.
iPad needs to come out with like a thing that just attaches to my eyes so I can just stare at it. No one can see it.
One time on a flight, this was like 2019, I was on a flight and I was reading a book, and the name of the book is The Nazi Symbiosis, and it has a big swastika on the side. And I was reading it, and it's about how
and the whole time you're just going dying laugh.
Well, no. It's I think I've told this story once on I probably told this story once on another podcast, but it just what you're saying. This is a real thing. I was sitting next to a woman. I didn't realize, I was always in the aisle seat, so she could see the cover because I was like that. And there was a part in this book, The Nazi Symbiosis, which is really it's kind of like about Nazi and like the eugenics and like how like how their minds turned into doing what they did. It's like follows that. So one part, but they would talk about like the horrors of the Holocaust. And there's a part in the Holocaust where it's not funny.
Well, you're laughing already.
No. They wanted to, like Hitler and
Goebbels?
Himmler Goebbels is the propaganda minister. Himmler was like really like
Himmler.
They were the ones that were like doing like the experiments, and they had one experiment where they were going to try to like invent something where like Nazis could fly, like some type of like flying power. So they would take members, like Jewish members, people in the Holocaust, and in like this big slingshot.
Shut up.
I swear to God, like throw them up into the air with like this potion, and they would all just like
what, to see if they could fly?
Yeah, with this thing, because they would do all these experiments and they would fall.
What?
Like I'm talking about like 100 yards in the air, and then they'd fall and obviously die. And when I was reading it, like it was so shocking to me that I was like almost like repulsed and like laughing. And this woman at the end of the flight was like, I just thought it was a little inappropriate that you were giggling in that book, and I want to know what that was about. And I explained I've told the story before, and I explained to her that, hey, like the Nazis were injecting members of the Holocaust with like this magic potion and putting them in a slingshot and throwing them up into the air. And they were falling on the floor. So it's horrible, but I thought it was funny. And she was like, someone in my family was killed in the Holocaust. And I don't think anything about that book was funny. And I was like, nothing about the Holocaust is funny. Like zero about the Holocaust is funny.
Insane.
I was like, but that, like that's why I was laughing at that.
Slingshotting people?
They were slingshotting people into the air and then just standing there and be like, this one didn't work.
So insane.
And so.
Well, try it again.
Yes. Get another one in.
Reload. Like, think about the mindset of these fucking pieces of shit. It is crazy that it's so interesting to want to learn about that stuff in history. But the more you read it, the more you're like, I can't believe this is what people actually thought.
Well, it's one of those things too where I love history, and I'm fascinated with reading books or watching documentaries about the enemies of the United States, because when you read about the United States, it's always like, hey, we're winners, or we're going to put it to our citizens in a certain way. But when you read about other countries, you're like, oh, it's all the same everywhere you go. It's all the same. It's just the group gets power and they treat the other group like dog shit. That's just what happens anywhere from any country you go to. Yeah. But it's interesting. But it's an interesting thing. Well, read those books.
It is but that's why I'm so afraid. I don't want to like look at stuff on a plane that I'm like. There's stuff that I want to read or watch, but you just can't. The guy on the way in was watching Game of Thrones. He was a really cool dude. We started chatting. He was a baseball scout for the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and he gave me his
Can you
card.
be on the team because you have red hair?
He said yes.
Wow.
He said yes. I asked. He said yes. I said, my buddy Chris is going to want to know when I get back to LA if I could be on the team. And he said, you got it, kiddo. Yes. Gave me his card. So I think I'm pitching next week.
Great.
I got to go to Natty.
I want to come.
He said he was watching Game of Thrones, and he had it tilted a little bit. And he was talking about the F1 show, and he was like, that's great. He's like, I'm watching Game of Thrones, but I got to be careful on a plane because, there's a lot of nudity on the show. And I'm like, well, you're good for me. And he was like, yeah, but, I've had it where like a kid is looking through the crack, behind like just like a little pervert kid. Yeah, is watching the set scene. And he goes, I had to like put my elbow up through to block the seat. Otherwise, you have to turn to the dad and be like, hey, dude, he's getting some titty education right now.
Yeah.
But that showed, you do realize that when I watch stuff and I'm like, I can't.
Right.
I don't want to, because even though it's like, it's not like a porno, it's just like a rated R show or movie.
Yeah.
But then you see someone, you're conscious of it, like whenever a sex scene, I'm always like, okay.
But you know what, though? My feeling, though, like if my kid, I've been on flights with my kids, I kind of like once we walk, I tell them all the time, like once we walk out, like there are rules in the house, like, you know, no cursing, obviously there'll be no nudity. But once you walk out into the real world, you're going to see stuff. I don't want to shield them from that because then they grow up and they act like idiots. So I would just, you know, if they turned around and was like, what's going on? I'd be like, well, you know, Cersei's getting fucked in the ass.
Pounded.
Bud.
Well, I guess,
you know,
I guess the nudity and sexuality of the United States is so different. Like, is nudity common in the Philippines? It's not a big deal, huh?
Yeah, my siblings, my brothers watch like anything. And my mom doesn't care.
Right.
Nobody says anything.
But Rudy, even on like the equivalent of like the CBS, like the local, you know, like the mainstream shows, they don't even block it out, right? The Filipino, like the United States, we block all that stuff out, or we say, oh, you know, you can't say shit, you have to say poo-poo. But then, you know, they'll show Rambo with like AK-47s and grenades, and you're like, yeah, well, obviously, you know.
We're okay with guns and death because we're a militarized country. We love the idea. Like, that's defense, dude.
Defense.
But sex is naughty.
Naughty.
Sex is wrong.